All right.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, great. So everyone that's joined, I know we've got folks that are going to continue probably trickling in over the next few minutes. Thanks for sharing some of your locations. Duncan, you have a beautiful airport in Houston. I was just there about a week ago. So thank everyone for joining. We're really excited about the presentation that we're going to do today. It's actually the first time that we've ever done sort of a large scale kind of general update about a particular product. Content Controller lends itself really well to this type of presentation. So thank you everyone that has joined. I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into things here. About us at Rusticy Software. I know many of you on the call are current customers of ours, so super grateful for you to take some time out of your day to join us. For folks that are new to Rusticy Software, we are seen in the industry as e-learning standards experts. We've been around for 20 years. We actually just had our 20th anniversary on Friday. So I had a really nice celebration here in kind of the Nashville, Tennessee, Franklin area. We have been helping primarily e-learning technology companies from the very beginning to support standards and play nicely with one another. So we're behind the scenes in a bunch of learning management systems around the world, helping them support SCORM, behind the scenes in many of your favorite authoring tools, helping those content creation tools support various e-learning standards. And we're also software providers when it comes to content centralization and content distribution, which is what we're going to be focused on mostly today with our Content Controller application. You'll see here a couple of pictures. That is an old picture of me. I think I lost my barber's address, Joe. I barely recognize myself. But you look just as nice as ever. This is Joe Donnelly, if you can see on the picture there and on the webcam. Joe has been with Rusticy for 14 years. He's one of our OGs. Been doing this a super long time. If you've ever had the chance to work with our support team, there's a really good chance that you work directly with Joe, and in some cases with his brother, Ryan. So Joe is our guru when it comes to a lot of the standards that we have some expertise in. And then also on the Content Controller side of things, Joe really runs point along with Matt Bird on our team to help people get up and running with Content Controller, to do any and all training sessions around the tool. And Joe's going to be helping us today with showing off some of the new features that just got released in the 3.3 version of the application.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it. And of course, we have Andy with us, who is the best learning standards salesperson / business use case person in the galaxy, who can definitely get you a table at. Are we doing the hitchhikers gags now?
Yeah, you can do that.
He can get you a table at the restaurant at the end of the universe. He's been with Rusticy for half of our existence, for coming up on 10 years. Actually, our anniversaries are just a couple of days apart, which is always kind of fun. But Andy is on the front lines with all of our prospects, with our existing customers. You've most likely talked to Andy when you talk to us about any of our products. And before we get started, so I have an important question for you, Andy.
Yeah.
Do you know where your towel is?
Probably. I know. I go to.
I have mine because I'm a little chilly, and everybody knows one of the best uses for towels amongst all of the uses is to keep warm. So I'm going to keep mine right here while you do the rest of the demo, and I'll probably have to take it off because
yeah, you'll get hot. All right, so we're going to kind of kick things off today with a kind of general demo of the tool. Based on our understanding of the folks that signed up for this session, lots of new faces with existing customers. And so we think it's a good opportunity for us to take a look at the application, kind of general demonstration of it to highlight really the key value features, valuable pieces of the application. So I'm going to take the lead on kind of part one, which is walking you through kind of a general overview of the solution. And then when that piece is done, I'm going to kick it over to Joe in his towel, and he's going to go through the new features of 3.3. This is a release that just came out a week or so ago. We're really excited about it. There's some really interesting things that have come with that latest release. These are some of the things that we're going to take a look at today with kind of the general demo that we'll do here now. So switching over into the application. As you can see with the Content Controller web application, there are three primary sections of the tool. I like to start in the content section because without content in this tool, Content Controller is not a very useful application for folks. So in the content section, this is where our customers' course libraries are kind of managed and imported into the tool. So clicking on kind of the add button, which is where you would go to add any piece of content to the application, you'll find that this application, like a lot of our applications, if you're familiar with SCORM Cloud, for example, as an import standard, we support all versions of the SCORM standard. So SCORM 1.2, 2004, second, third, and fourth edition. We also support the AICC standard. XAPI, if you're old school, you might call it tin can packages. We sometimes do as well. And then we've got CMI5, which is a very new packaging profile for XAPI conformant content. Likely, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a lot of use over the next several years. In addition to standards-based content, you can also have us help you with the centrally hosting and distribution of PDFs, MP3s, and MP4s. One of the reasons why customers of ours like using Content Controller for this is that even for these types of files, we're going to enable you to share that content with any third-party LMS without actually handing over these media files to them. And in addition to that, so from a control perspective, that's nice. But in addition to that, we're going to, under the hood, automatically track the usage of these file formats using XAPI and CMI5. So you'll be able to see within Content Controller who has completed viewing PDFs, completed listening to MP3s and how long it took, completed watching MP4 files and how long it took. And then we're also going to share that type of information over to the third-party LMSs that you are that you're sharing your content with. All right, so that's the various types of content that the solution supports. Once in the application, we have a foldering system that we've built. This came out a couple of versions ago. Folders are a nice way to make to tidy up your content tab, essentially. So from a visual organization perspective, folders are nice for that bit. Folders are also interesting because this is how you can control which administrators of Content Controller can access and manage different pieces of content within the tool as well. So you can set up teams in the application, and for each particular folder, you can control access by adding a team to that folder. Any administrator that is assigned to that team will then have the ability to log into Content Controller, obviously, and then when they log in, they will see just the folders that they have been assigned to, which allows them to do various things like, you know, update content, test content, add content to accounts, various things like that. So a couple dual purposes for the foldering side of things within SCORM Cloud, or within Content Controller rather. All right, so we've got our content in the application. The next part we're going to jump into is accounts. So the account section are where your customers, partners, clients live, essentially. Any third-party system or partner, customer, client that you want to or need to share content with, you will want to have an account within Content Controller, because that's how we're going to help you manage how long they can access that content for, and even things like how many learners can access that content for that particular account. If you're using Content Controller more as a centralization tool, meaning that Content Controller is housing all of your content and you're sharing it into LMSs within your organization, then you would likely want to have a different account for each internal LMS, because even though you're probably not using the access control bit of licensing, it will still allow us to segment data in our tool based on the learning system that you're sharing the content into, which can be a nice way of dividing up the data and seeing activity per LMS that you might be sharing with. So if we talk about kind of the traditional use case of Content Controller, where you are a content owner, a content provider, you have customers that are coming to you asking for your content. Perhaps you're an off-the-shelf provider of content, licensing your content to your customers, or like some of our customers like Bridgestone and Valvoline and a few other product companies, they're using Content Controller to centrally host their content, but make their content available through third-party LMSs that their extended enterprise partners are using. So their distributors, their retail partners, service providers, folks like that. So in either case, you'll set up an account for each relationship that you end up having that you need to share content with. Part of the account creation process is going to be telling Content Controller how you have licensed your content with this particular account. Licenses are all about access control with this particular tool. And we have a few different licensing limits that you can apply for the account. At the account level, you can set up an expiration date. This is in place to ensure that if that relationship were to end, in this case with Acme Inc., we are going, Content Controller, that is going to automatically cut off access to any piece of content that you've shared with Acme Inc. on that expiration date. That just ensures, again, pretty self-explanatory, but we want to make sure that your content doesn't continue to be accessible through a customer or partner's LMS if they don't renew with you or extend the relationship with our customer. So ensures that protection. In addition to an expiration date, you can set some additional limits. This really depends on if you're licensing content to a customer based on an expiration date and perhaps a learner population or a registration limit. In this example, we're going to license content to Acme Inc. for 100 unique learners. We'll allow up to 100 unique learners to access the content that we've shared with Acme Inc. up until the expiration date. But the 101st learner is going to be denied access to ensure, again, that they don't exceed the license that you have in place with them. So it's all about automating access control and allowing us to sort of help you govern that relationship around your content licenses. Before we hop into the content tab, we'll take a look real quick, just highlight license alerts. Something that a lot of customers really like is that you can sign up different folks on your team for license alerts for various accounts. We're going to notify those folks that are assigned to different accounts for license alerts with updates on that account. So they don't have to continuously log in to Content Controller to see how close Acme Inc. is to reaching particular limits. Makes it a little bit more efficient to ultimately manage the accounts that you have in the tool without constantly having to log in and check in on them. Okay, so jumping into the content tab. Once you have the account created, you have established the licensing limits for that account, if that's applicable. The next step is going to be telling Content Controller what content you need to share with the account. So initially, this tab will be empty after you create the account at the beginning. And to add content to the account, click the add button. And if you have just individual content that you want to add to the account, you can select add content and then just move over the individual courses or equivalents that you have that you need to share with that account. Alternatively, if you've set up everything as folders, you can just copy entire folders into the account's content tab. But once that is done, then you will have all of the content that you're needing to share with the account loaded into their specific content tab. The last step usually is to then go and share this content with the account. So to do that the first time, if you tick this top box, it's going to check all the pieces of content in their content tab. This share button is going to magically appear. And this is where you're going to be able to select which standard you want to share your content through. So this is the moment, and ideally you've done this beforehand, is where you're having conversations with your partner, your client, your customer about what LMS they're using and which of these standards their learning management system best supports. In the vast majority of cases, our experience tells us that most folks that use learning management systems are going to need SCORM 1.2 packages. So a large percentage of your customers or partners will ask for SCORM 1.2. But obviously, we've had edge cases over the years where we have needed to help our customers support LMSs that conform to other standards as well. So this has been kind of a growing list of standards. The newest one being CMI5. I'm not going to steal Joe's thunder there. We'll come back to that here in just a bit. And then some LTI things will be highlighted when Joe talks about some of the new features of the tool. But essentially, you'll select that standard. You'll select Get Link. Content Controller will generate a download link, which you can copy and email or go through a secure communication system, maybe Slack or Basecamp or something like that, to share that download link with your customer, partner, client. Or if you rather would do so, you can download the packages yourself to your own machine. We have some customers choose to do this because they want to share through a secure FTP or Dropbox, Box.com, some file sharing program. For folks that don't know, what I have just downloaded here are what we call proxy packages. In this particular case, let's say that I have 20 pieces of content that I need to share with Acme Inc. I've selected SCORM 1.2 from my drop-down menu, and I've clicked download SCORM 1.2 packages. What I have just downloaded are 20, in this case, SCORM 1.2, what we call proxy packages. One of the things that Content Controller is providing to us is a way to make your content accessible through any third-party LMS that supports one of those standards without actually handing over the content itself. So this file that I just downloaded is a 1-zip package. If I unzip it, I'm going to see all of the SCORM 1.2 proxy packages, one for each piece of content. So for each SCORM package you might be sharing, for each PDF file, for each video. An important thing that comes up a lot in conversations with folks about the application, you can choose to publish your content to any standard that Content Controller supports. So if you're leaning into CMI5 and Tin Can, you are free to publish your content to those standards. We will still be able to help you share that Tin Can or CMI5 content with a SCORM conformant LMS or an AICC conformant LMS or an LTI conformant LMS. Those two decisions are decoupled from one another. And there's good reasons why you might choose to publish your content to a more recent specification like Tin Can or CMI5. It's just going to provide you with more interesting data to be able to report on. But we still need to be compatible with lots of legacy systems, that many of which just support SCORM 1.2 or maybe an early version of LTI. So in this particular case, these files will get imported into the third-party LMS like any other SCORM package. From there, the LMS administrator or whoever's responsible on the LMS side will start assigning your content to their learners in their system. When a learner logs into the third-party LMS and launches one of your courses, that LMS will open up their SCORM player. The stub package or proxy package will get loaded inside of that player. And inside of that proxy package is a URL that points back into the content that we're hosting in Content Controller. So we are simply going to load the content in the browser for the user when they launch it from the learning management system. The nice thing for the end user is that it's a seamless experience. They won't even know in most cases that Content Controller exists. We're just going to load in the context of their existing SCORM player in most cases. This allows our system to collect all of the progress data that your content generates during runtime as the learner is making progress through the course. And then the proxy package enables us to communicate standards-based data directly back into the learning management system. So in the example where you have, let's say, CMI5 package content in Content Controller, we're going to store a bunch of XAPI data in Content Controller's LRS. But if you shared that content via SCORM 1.2 packages, we're going to push SCORM 1.2 data back into the learning management system. So we do that magically behind the scenes without you all having to even really think about it. Okay, so hopping over real quick, because I want to give Joe enough time to go through the new features. Looking at the reporting side of things, we'll move through this section pretty quickly. The usage tab is kind of 30,000 foot views of license limits, about content usage. So if I want to see all of my accounts that have access to a particular piece of content, and I want to see how many learners they had engaged with that content, this is a place I can go to see that kind of high level information. Account usage is similar, but looking at the account instead of a piece of content, and I can see how active a particular account is with any particular course or piece of content. The course tab is where you would go for a summary view of any particular piece of content in Content Controller. So we're going to be taking all the data we've collected across every launch and funneling it into this one summary report. So it'll have the normal things that you're used to seeing: completions, pass, fail, scores, total time. If it's a standards-based package and you're tracking questions in a quiz or an assessment, we'll be able to show you the question that was asked, the answers that are available, and the percentage split of users selecting various answers. And then on the learner tab, we're going to look at individual accounts. So this is where you're curious about a particular customer or partner, and you want to see their specific usage in a particular course. Again, you're going to see things like completions, pass, fails, scores, and total times. But the big difference here is the learner table at the bottom. We're going to be able to see every unique learner that has ever launched this particular course through that account's learning management system. If you click on a particular learner, you'll be able to see their individual card. And if we know their answers to their questions on the quiz or the assessment, you'll be able to see their individual responses there. So in a typical demo, there's other aspects of the tool that we would get into. One specific thing is going to be content updates. This will be the last thing I talk about before I hand it over to Joe. If there's ever a time you need to update a piece of content, you will update it once in Content Controller. Any LMS in the world that has access to that course will automatically get access to the updated version. And if you'd like us to, we can keep learners that are in progress with the old version on that old version, while any new learner would get the new version. Okay, Joe, I have talked enough. Hopefully that's helpful for folks that have maybe never seen the application before. This is your first look at the tool. For anything more in depth, if you're a customer, reach out. Joe will be happy to schedule some time. Probably Matt Bird would be involved in that process. If you're new to Rusticy Software, not a current customer, you feel free to reach out, and you'd likely talk to me, and we'd dive into things a bit deeper. With that, Joe, I'm going to allow you to steal the share, pull up things on your side, and we'll talk about the new features in 3.3.
Awesome, thanks, Andy. So I've got a couple of things to show you here, and I do realize I think we've got some questions, so I want to kind of move through them with giving you the full functionality. So I'm starting in my instance of Content Controller, but we're going to start by talking about LTI 1.3. So a big add for the 3.3 release is deep linking for LTI 1.3. As some of you may know, getting your launch links into that third party using LTI can be kind of a slog. And are you ready, Andy?
Yeah.
I need you to know. I just need you to be ready. It could be as boring as listening to Vogon poetry. That's my last one. I have no more. Anyhow, it's kind of a pain because you'd have to go through one by one and put those launch links into your third party. Deep linking fixes that, and I think it fixes well, it fixes the whole the concept of LTI for me. And so what I'm going to show you today is a connection between Content Controller and Moodle. And I'm going to pop over to my Moodle. And this is my test course that I've set up a while back. And I've got editing on. And instead of copying and pasting link by link as activities or resources, I can now add an activity. Also, Moodle's been kind of slow on me. Oh, actually, that's really nice. I've already set up an external tool that connects us to my Content Controller. This is the slow bit. No, there we go. I can then just set up a quick activity. Whoops. Then I can look for my pre-configured tool that I've already set up. choose it. And then if I click select content, I've got this great link and really view into content controller. So instead of copying and pasting those things, I can just kind of grab those. I grab Big Buck Bunny, hit continue. It's going to think about it, and then it's going to say the following items have been added. If I go back to my course now, go down here. There we go. There's I added it in the same one. That's kind of odd, but anyhow, I can click on my activities. Now, and it's going to block a pop-up. Let's see how this goes. See if you get to see Big Buck Bunny. Are you guys, you seen the video, Andy?
I do.
Oh. So you have you have a lot of options there. Okay. Whoop. I'm gonna try to get rid of Big Buck Bunny for you. There we go. So LTI 1.3 deep linking, a big piece of 3.3. We're super excited about it. Couple other things on the application side of things. One, Andy showed it to you. Exporting a CMI5 is a big piece. Now, along with SCORM, AICC, all those other standards, you'll be able to pop out a CMI5 package, put it in the third party, and launch it from there. So I'm not going to kind of run through that. Some of you, if not all of you who have been in my training classes, I usually kind of jog through the room when we talk about this about page. The about page normally is very boring. It just says what version you're running, and it has a a sweet message about us in Franklin, Tennessee. But it's got this really cool count learners report at the bottom that's just kind of scrolled away there. Now, in the old days, pre 3.3, it would just give you the number of learners out in the wild that are taking your content. I now have an include details option, which allows me to not only see the number of people, and now this is kind of a garbagey report for you, but you can now see that it actually splits out your user counts by account by month. So this is going to help your account managers, your folks that are in the weeds, delivering the content to your clients, and it should prove to be a pretty big ad for you. The last thing I have to share is kind of conceptual in that we have added some API reporting abilities. As of right now, in 3.3, you can harness the power of the content controller API to grab the learner history, the registration history, and the interaction history reports. And you can choose the output in a couple of ways. You can pop out a CSV, cool. But you can also pop out that data as JSON. So you can take that data, pop it into your reporting builders, and really analyze the data even further than we allow you to do here. So those are really the big four for the 3.3. We're all super stoked about it, especially the LTI bit. We've been having a lot of fun with it, and we've been talking with our current clients and watching them be able to use LTI 1.3 more efficiently has been a really cool thing. And that's my time. Thanks, Andy, back to you.
Yeah, so I know we've got questions that have come in while we've been blabbering over the last 30 minutes or so. Before we do that, Joe, would you want to spend a little bit of time, and if not, that's cool, we can dive into questions, but I think you had a list of some like kind of highlight features that people tend to kind of gravitate towards a lot, or maybe even ask a lot of questions about. Maybe we do a little bit of that because we've got a little time. Yeah, sure. We don't have like an infinite long list of questions, but yeah, maybe we spend like 5 minutes or so kind of touching on some of those things before we hop into the questions.
Sure. And so when we were all talking about the webinar and what we wanted to talk about, I know there's a list of functions that Matt and Ryan and I find ourselves talking a lot about. A couple of the things that I want to kind of go out and then clarify is, well, we're going to start over in the administration tab. The administration tab is the settings area of Content Controller. And first thing I want to point out, and this is important because Andy touched on folders and teams earlier, is user roles. So one, the roles in Content Controller are still very simple. There are two different roles, the admin role and the not an admin role. We don't have a name for it. As you can see, this is not an admin, test user 0312. Now, that's not to say that these people don't have admin-like tendencies. They can do admin-y things. They are just not super users. So the thing to keep in mind when you're setting up users is one, Content Controller is for you. You probably don't want your clients getting user logins for this. So you'll want to set up your people either as an admin, and those admin folks will have access to create and look at any accounts that are out there. They can mess with any content that's in your global content pool. They can run reports on anything. And probably most importantly, they have access to this administration section right here. Now you're not an admins, that's a little bit different. They don't have access to any existing accounts. So they wouldn't be able to go in and mess around with Acme eLearning unless I went into my advanced tab and added them as a person who could look at it. And I would be able to add them as a read-only or a read-write. So people ask about user roles. We have talked through, adding different roles. I know we've got some stuff on the product board. Some of you may have even asked for it. I know the reporting role is something that's been super popular, but that's out there. Another thing, while I'm over here in the advanced section, that folks have been asking for, it's been interesting, XAPI statement forwarding. We do have the ability to forward statements that are being created on our side of things to any LRS, any outside LRS. If you're pointing to Watershed or Learning Locker, anybody like that, we have the ability to set up those statement pipes. And just touching on something that Andy said earlier too about, you can import your tin cans, you can import your CMI5s into Content Controller and export it as something else. You can also turn on statement forwarding for your non-XAPI CMI5 content. So if you have a SCORM 2004 course and you want Content Controller to generate statements and then send it out to another LRS, we can do that. Now, you're not going to get all of the really elegant statements that you're going to get from your XAPI or CMI5. It's just going to be SCORM parity, if you will. But it will send it off to those third-party LRSs, and folks have been really enjoying that because it gives you the ability to once again kind of slice into that data a little bit more in an analytics tool. It's funny, all of my bits are right in here. It's pretty easy. Appearance. Another thing that has come up more often lately, which has been interesting, is changing out the error verbiage so that it is more, I guess it sounds more like your company. You can do that all through here. You can edit any of these messages to reflect whatever you want. You can change the CSS so that when the player opens, it looks more like something like either your client's expecting or your CSS. So really the thing here is that you have a lot of ability to manipulate how things look, how things feel from the Content Controller side of things. That's really my list. Is that enough time?
No, that's great.
Not too much? I'm good.
No, yeah, I think this gives us a good amount of time to get through some questions that have come in. Our friend David Glow is sort of at the top of this list. I don't know the answer to this, Joe. So maybe you do, and if neither of us do, then maybe we take it as some homework and share it some other way. But David asked about the audio and video files living on a streaming server within Content Controller, but I don't know the answer to that actually.
So we use Video.js now to deliver video. They're all hosted in AWS with our instance of Content Controller. I don't know if I classify that as a streamer server. We might need to probably shore up our words there, yep. But but we are using Video.js, which actually is another neat part of 3. It might be 3.3, it might have been 3.2, but it adds a bunch of video options, including the learner's ability to go in and change the quality. We're going to come in at probably the highest quality possible, but if you've got a learner that might be out in the field, that doesn't have the ability to push a big video at 1080, then you can pop it down. That, and there's been another couple of additions in there. I think you can pop video forward and back. You can slow it down, speed it up, that sort of thing.
Yep. And there's viewing thresholds that you can set for videos and audio files as well. So if you don't want us to set complete until they've watched 99.9% of the video, you can set it to that. So there's some interesting things that we're doing around video. Taryn asked, are you able to slice the data according to team or user group? I'm going to answer it in this way, and then Joe, if you want to answer it in your way. Ultimately, data within Content Controller typically gets organized around accounts. So if you relate a team to an account or a user group to an account, then yes, but probably not the way that you're thinking about it, right? So, within the Content Controller application, you can look at summary views for every piece of content from a reporting perspective, where we collect the data from all launches across all accounts and put it into one big summary report, which I showed earlier. You could also then look at the data for any particular piece of content per account. So those are really the two kind of primary views. If there's other ways that you want to sort of look at data, then that kind of gets maybe into what Joe was talking about with getting data out. So pull it out as a CSV, pull it out as a JSON, put it into some other tool, and perhaps look at things a little bit differently there. Our reports are going to be, static. They sort of are what they are today. We're filling them in with the information that we gather. In the future, we'll likely have some other styles of reporting, I'm guessing, that we'll share at some point in time. All right, so let's see. Veronica asked, any plans to allow Salesforce two-way sync to monitor usage details by account owners? We sell to third-party customers. I'll let Joe chime in on this one.
I don't have an answer on this one, but this is one of those situations. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of those things that we can get back to you on that one. We've got a lot of things on the product board. Content Controller is, I can say this because we're talking about the Content Controller, but it's one of I think it's one of the more exciting products to talk about. Yep. And there are a lot of things that people want added to it, but we can get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add there, Joe, would be there is an API. So anything that you can do for the most part in the application itself via its application UI, you can do through an API that we offer. We typically aren't in the business of building like specific connectors with specific third-party systems, Salesforce being a good example of this. But if you have folks on your side, or maybe a technology partner that you work with that knows Salesforce's API, you can understand our API. You could build your own bit of middleware to communicate between the two. And I do believe that we've had some customers out there that have done that. We just haven't built a Salesforce specific connector in any way. All right, Jim Morgan asks, what is the launcher output? This starts to get into kind of maybe a slightly longer answer perhaps than what we might have time for today, but Joe, do you want to touch on sort of what comes out of Content Controller through launcher and maybe super high level of how that works?
Sure. So basically it's a link. It's a launch link is what it is. You're going to end up putting a relay package somewhere. So on a server somewhere, and then you end up. Do you want me to try to show it?
We got 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. That's okay.
We got more time. People can bail if they want to. I'll watch you all day doing stuff like this.
Yeah, likewise. All right, hold on. Let me get that up. I'm pretty sure this is one of those things that it's kind of scary. It's like
on the fly.
I'm pretty sure I've got this going. Oops. saw my gross desktop. And are you seeing content controller? What you're going to end up doing is you're going to have, I'm going to go over to my content here. I'm going to get my employee wellness. I'm going to pop down to this golf tester is my launcher demo. And so you're going to end up with this link that you can pop, somewhere. And when I launch this, content controller says that I don't have any licenses to view this content, but it's working. So you've got a link that's you're gonna pop somewhere. It is going to use that token to log into content controller and launch the content basically outside of the context of an LMS on the third party side of things. I think that's the good.
Yeah, I mean, the use case for it is really if you have the need to provide access to content in content controller, but you don't have a third-party LMS that supports standards, then that's the key use case for Launcher. So keep that in mind. I answered Carlos's question in the chat. It was about FERPA related issues. Candidly, I had to do some Googling on that, but ultimately we have the ability to anonymize learner data if you don't want to hold on to PII for end users. We also have the ability to target, export, and target delete specific learner data as well. So those things might be helpful when it comes to FERPA related or COPPA or GDPR or whatever it might be there. Let's see, other than folders, are there mechanisms in the content storage that would allow CC to be used as a CMS for our development teams? For example, tagging the content, we need somewhere they can go to discover content someone else has already written. That's a good question. The way that I would think about that is perhaps what we're expecting to come into content controller is sort of the finished product, right? So it would not be a place that I would recommend putting content that is not completed yet or like finished being built. But if you want to use content controller as a place for people to come to and view and test the completed course that was maybe created using an LCMS or an authoring tool somewhere, it's a great tool for that type of use case, especially if then you need to then share it with some third-party LMS, either that you control or that a customer or an account might control. Jamal asked if 3.3 is already available. Yes, it is. Made that announcement a week or so ago, so that's great. Let's see, a couple minutes left. Duncan says, if you have Squirm Engine set to send Squirmy XAPI and load content proxy from controller, is the Squirm Engine XAPI seconded to content or to controller? I guess my confusion is about the proxy and how it impacts XAPI. I read that out loud, Joe. What did you get out of that question?
That is a great question, Duncan. That is probably something that I know that we have folks, and I guess the way that I think about it, and if I've missed this, please feel free to email me afterwards. The way that I think about it is that you have two players in the mix here, right? And so if you have, and I'm probably going to miss it from the proxy standpoint, but you have two players in the mix. You've got your engine, launches dispatch.html, which reaches out to content controller. Content controller is then going to start sending off, statements to wherever. For that, you're probably going to get an attempted statement on the engine side of things until we start sending you stuff from content controller. So I guess the idea, we might need to talk about this one offline because I'm already kind of talking myself into a corner. I'm sorry, Duncan. That's a great question. But yeah, we might need to explore that one.
Yeah, we've got about 1 minute left before everyone starts to bail. I want to highlight the last slide here. For those that know us, over the last 20 years, we're a place that people can come to get questions answered. Usually those take the form of standards questions, questions about our products. But if you just have any random question you want to ask us, we'll try to answer that as well. We have a few folks that sort of are on the front line. So for prospects, that typically is going to be myself, Chris, Philip, or Peter. So if you email info@rusticysoftware.com and you're not yet a customer of ours, you'll have the opportunity to speak with someone on my team. If you are a customer, then you probably know how to get in touch with Joe and the team already. But if you come in through Rusticy or the info@email, we'll get you directed to the right folks based on the particular product that you're using. So I wanted to just highlight that before we bail. We're going to take one last question and maybe go over time a little bit. So if for folks that need to bail, totally cool. We're going to touch on Rutherford's question real quick. I'll read it out loud, Joe, and then you'll probably have a better answer on this one than I do. If we were a Rusticy hosted instance, so read manage hosted instance of Content Controller, do we need to request an upgrade to 3.3, or is it being rolled out on a specific timeline? I'm wondering because our instance is still 3.2 version, although 3.3 has been released. What say you, Joe Donnelly?
So there is no downtime going from 3.2x to 3.3. However, we are still reaching out to folks just to let them know, hey, we have a new version. We'd like to upgrade you. Some clients prefer to have us do it off hours, even though really in the grand scheme of things, there shouldn't be any problem with it. But we want to make sure we keep all of our ducks in a row and that everything is safe and everybody feels comfortable. So we will reach out to you, figure out what the best time is. Some folks might just say, just do it. And then other folks might say, hey, we want you to, do it at, midnight, just to make sure our user population's down. So we are reaching out with folks, either your account manager or really, Matt or I might be reaching out at some point just to say, hey, we've got this. We'd love to have you on it. But yeah, so Rutherford, we'll you know what, you'll hear from me. I'll shoot you a message after this.
Awesome. All right, so I think that's it. Any closing thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, well, I did have to say something, or somebody was going to probably get fussy with me.
I figured.
Yeah. So thanks for your time. Really, honestly, and this is not the bit that I'm going to get fussed at about. This is true. I love talking about Content Controller. If any of y'all have questions about it, or want to jump on a call to go through any of the new functionality, reach out to us at the support address, or via info through Andy. Happy to do that. And thank you for your time, and so long, and thanks for all the content.
All right, everyone, take care. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye for now.